Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports for today's weekend preview and weekend predictions, more importantly. And we're going to be doing them on mypicks.app. And if you have not yet done so, then please go and head over to mypicks.app. Go and submit your predictions for the weekend. Go and join our leagues and let me know what you think is going to happen. Of course, what's going to be a very interesting weekend. Starts with a Bokke game. There's an England versus New Zealand game, and there's an Ireland versus Australia game. France looking to bounce back against Fiji. You got Wales versus Japan. Can Wales finally get a victory and try and start building themselves back up? And then a Sunday fixture where we've got Argentina taking on Scotland, which should also prove to be very, very interesting. Before we get into predictions, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, so things all start quite quickly this weekend, and we've got Italy versus the Springboks tomorrow. So if we look at the Springboks side, it is a rotated side. There's no doubt about that. There are some new combinations. For example, Ethan Hooker, Kenny Moody in the midfield never played together. I don't think Franco Mosta and John Klein have ever played together either. But obviously very experienced campaigners. It's a front row with not a lot of experience with Jan Kobolov, Zachary Porthen, Bowen Fenter. It's a back row, which is quite a new look with Marco van Staden getting an opportunity at number 8. So there's definitely a lot of combinations, but it's an incredible bench that the Boks do have. And I think that is going to be the big difference. I think if we kind of look, Italy's 15, Boks starting 15, you can maybe argue that there's probably, in terms of a combined 15, maybe more Italian players. But on the bench, I don't think there's a single player in the Italy bench which sort of outmatches what the Springboks have on the bench. And for that reason, I'm still expecting a pretty comfortable Bok victory. I do think that Italy are scoring, so I'm going to put them at 16 odd points. I think the Boks are going to go north of 30. So I'm going to go about 38. I'm going to go 38 points to 16. In fact, I'm actually even bold. I'm going to go to 45 points to 16. That's kind of where I'm at. I absolutely nailed last week's Bok prediction. I said Boks by 15. I said 35-20. So it wasn't quite the exact right score, but the margin was correct. So that's what I'm going to go with for Italy versus Boks and lock in that prediction. And this is what it all looks like, by the way. This is on mypicks.app. So go over there. As you can see, mypicks.app. Go and get your score predictions, and you can join our leagues and sort of see how you rank. Then probably the big match of the weekend, England versus the All Blacks. Two sides currently building inverted commas. A big opportunity, I think, for England to go and beat the All Blacks and to go and get a victory there. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to do it. I'm actually kind of backing the All Blacks still get up. I do think it's going to be a high-scoring game, though, to be honest. So I'm going to go with... I'm going to go 26-21. I think it's going to be quite a close game. I think the All Blacks will edge it unless England really do pitch up. But I think that England will push them. So I'm going to go 26 points, 21. 5-point margin. I could be completely wrong. But I think it's two teams who every now and again, there's a couple of players that can create chances. I don't think that defensively either team has been really good enough this year. So I'm going to go with that. Then Wales versus Japan. Now, Japan, I think, are just at the moment just not really rocked up so far. Apart from that sort of almost comeback against Australia. Now, Wales are there for the taking. But I've just got a feeling that we might see something this weekend. Again, I think this could be quite a high-scoring game. So I'm going to sort of put it at sort of, I'm actually going to 4-point margin. I'm going to go 32 points to 28 from Wales. I don't know why, I'm just foreseeing points and this weekend. And I think that Wales could have enough to beat Japan. So I'm going to lock that one in. That maybe might be a bit of a ballsy one. Ireland versus the Wallabies. I mean, look, a month ago, for example, I might have backed the Wallabies to have, I think they'll score points. I'll give the Wallabies 14 odd. Let's maybe say 15. This maybe it takes 3 pointers, but I think Ireland are going to score a lot of tries. So I'm going to put Ireland at 42 points to 15. I'm actually going to go down to 40. 40 points to 15. I think Ireland could score a lot of points against the Wallabies. I don't think it's the Irish playing their best rugby at the moment. I think the Wallabies at the moment are just completely low on confidence, and I think that Ireland will put points on them. But I do think Australia will score at least 2 tries. Is kind of my gut. Maybe a couple of penalties along the way as well. So I'm going to go 40 points to 15. I'm going to lock that in. And then with France versus Fiji. Now, Fiji, it was a good game last weekend. Maybe the score didn't quite do the game justice. I think France will be very, very motivated to try and sort of hit back and to get some points over there. So I'm going to go France 31 odd. And I'm going to go Fiji 14. I reckon Fiji. In fact, I'm going to go 16. Let's go 18, actually. Let's go 18. Shall we go 18 and I'll back Fiji to score some points over there? I think that if Fiji pitch up, they can compete, but I do think France in general will have too much for them. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's about a 13-point margin, 12, 13 points, kind of where I'm at. Save that prediction. Look, this could be completely wrong, in fairness. This is kind of just my gut and what I'm seeing. And that's why I want to know what your predictions are down in the comments below. And then the last game, you've got Scotland versus Argentina. I think Argentina are a good side, and I think that they will score tries. So I'm going to give them 19 points. However, I think that Scotland at home can play some pretty good rugby. I think Finn Russell, if he pitches up, so I'm going to give Scotland 33 points to 19, and I think they're going to get a job done over Argentina. As I'll be very interested to see what the world rankings start to look like as we sort of get towards the end of this Autumn Nations series, kind of the midway really here, and then next weekend as our last stacked weekend, and then we go into a very shortened weekend. So that's kind of what I've got with my predictions. They could be very wrong. They could be right. I've never been a particularly good score predictor, although last week, as I said, I got the 15-point margin right. And I'm actually sitting on top of the league. So, I mean, I'd say, what do I know? But evidently, at the moment, quite a lot. So, let me know what your predictions are. Copy the games, put them down in the comments. Give me your score predictions. And let me know that you have locked them in on mypicks.app so we can see over the weekend how kind of everybody's predictions are going. It's completely free to register. There are some premium features which you can buy with the premium subscription. But the core of it is free. And always will be, and you can go create your own leagues and the whole likes of that. So go and get yourself on mypicks.app, go and submit your predictions, go and predict teams, for example, in the future, and also do the player ratings. So for all of these games, there will be player ratings available. So if you're an English fan, you can go and rate the English players. You can go rate the All Blacks players if you are an All Blacks fan, and the like. So go and get involved on mypicks.app. Let me know what your predictions are. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon. And we are live. Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Forever Sports for today's Springboks versus Italy team prediction video. And it's going to be an exciting one, I think. I think it's going to be a lot more exciting than last week because I think there's a lot more unknowns with regards to what our team is going to look like this week. Last week, we kind of had an idea, well, pretty settled idea. I reckon about 12 out of the 15 sort of starters. I don't think there were too many positions that were really up for debate. This week, for example, I genuinely think 1 through to 15 could all be up for debate. And that's going to make for what I'm hoping a very interesting selection. And it's not going to be my selection. This is going to be your guys' selection, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running a poll for every single position and letting you guys vote who you think Rusty Russell is going to pick in that position for the team that's going to be announced later today. Team announcement is scheduled for about 1:45. That is when we are expecting to see the team come out. 2 o'clock absolute latest at this stage. And so make sure you come and join us later for what I think is going to be a very interesting side. And I think we're going to see lots of rotation, but at the same time, while we look to try and build momentum, you want to make sure that you give players opportunities, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you keep a certain amount of continuity to ensure the level of performance doesn't drop. Italy going and beating Australia, maybe throwing a bit of a gauntlet down, maybe showing that they're not going to be a walkover side. So there's lots to sort of really pick apart. And that's why I'm very interested to see what our team is going to look like when we get through to predicting it today. And please also feel free to send me your teams. I got a team last night from Christian who sends it every week. Loyal supporter of the channel. So make sure you go out now. You head over to mypicks.app and go and get your team locked in, and let me know what it looks like. So you can email it to me. I can put it up on the screen. We can chat through it, and or else just drop it in the comments, and we'll see exactly what everybody's got to say about it. Now, in terms of where I'm at, I mean, obviously we're gonna see rotation. That's a guarantee. And I think that there's certain players, for example, who I think are also obviously going to play against Wales. So I'm thinking like a Jason Dixon, for example. I think that he's very likely to play against Wales. I think that somebody like Evan van der Merwe was in the press conference this week, so I'm expecting him to start. I think that Morne van den Berg, for example, hasn't played in a while. I'm expecting him to be involved in some sort of capacity. Obviously, lots of talk about the fact that are we going to see Honde Pollard this weekend and is he going to start? you might be captain. How's that from going from not playing to all of a sudden potentially captaining, depending on how many people we do rotate, because we might not have Siya Kolisi or Peter Steph the Toy or Eben Etzebeth, for example. All these sort of players who have previously captained the box. So there's lots of different ways we can kind of go about doing this, and that's what makes it all lots and lots of fun. So how this is going to work is I'm going to put a poll up for every single position, and we need to be choosing who we think is going to start, not what we would pick, who we think Rassie Erasmus is going to pick, because after the team is announced, it's going to get scored, and we're going to basically allocate points towards every player that's been picked correctly, as well as where they've been picked correctly in the right position. So, if you, for example, have picked Dave Williams at 15, but he starts at 12, you'll get a point for having him in the side, but you won't have a point for him being at 15 if he's not. So you have 30 points available to you for every single team prediction that we do. And it all comes down to whether you can get the player right, first of all, and then whether you can get them in the right position. So let's get this going, shall we? And we'll start with who starts at number 1. The options being Bone Venter, Gerard Steenkamp, and Thomas the Toy are your lucid options, really. So let's get those going, shall we? We've got over 50 people watching. Please do smash like on the video, and we always like to say at least 50% of people have to vote on the player before we actually put them in the side itself. So with over 50 people watching, once we get to 25 votes, then we'll lock that player in our team and move on to the next one. And I'm just going to look at after we lock it in, whilst it generates, we'll then look at some of the other teams that have been submitted, like Christian, for example, who has submitted his side, and a very interesting side, to be fair. I quite like it. Whether we'll see it, I'm not entirely sure, but it should be a fun selection to look at. And I'm just really hoping that we get a fun team this weekend, something I can really sort of sink my teeth in it and get involved and pick apart. Because obviously it's quite a late team announcement, which means that Italy are not going to have a lot of time to prepare for whatever they announce. And that's, I'm sure, going to roll into it. For me, I'm very interested to see when we will announce the side for next week. Whether we're going to stick to Tuesday or whether we're going to go to keep the Thursday going, which we did last week. Now we're doing this week again. And both times, by the way, they have originally been scheduled for Monday and then Tuesday last week, Monday this week, and then been pushed back. So I don't know how much you could read into that. But we've got 29 votes. If we can get to 30 votes. And once we get to the 30 votes, we're going to lock that in, right? So we're going to lock in. So our first person going to go into our number 1 position is going to be Bone Venter. So we are basically saying that, ironically, after saying all the different changes we're expecting, our first player we're going to put in is actually not a change. But in fairness, it is a fantastic opportunity to give Bone Venter another go. And I agree with that. I think we will see him start, and I'd like to see him start. So the next big question is who starts at number 2? And are we gonna rest Malcolm Marx, inverted commas? Are we gonna give Jan Kobela a go from the bench again, or is he gonna get start? Or will we see something very bold? And I'm gonna put him in just because he does in theory cover it. Will we suddenly see somebody like a Markov van Staden all of a sudden maybe start at hooker? And I'll put him there just because he is the only other player that's designated to be able to play number 2 in the squad. So let's throw that in there and let's see what you guys reckon. I personally am predicting a Malcolm Marx start. Maybe they might go Jan Kobela, but I think that they're keeping that Bulls combination pretty good off the bench. And it's working at the moment. And again, it's a bit like Bongi Manambi, for example. When we saw, even if Malcolm Marx, for example, was on the bench, he'll probably come on about 40-odd minutes. So I don't think it makes a massive difference if he's on the bench or if he's starting. I think he still plays more or less the same, if not more minutes. I mean, that's what we had. Even when he was coming off the bench and Bongi Manambi was being back to start, Malcolm Marx actually getting more minutes over a season on the field than Bongi Manambi was because of just the way we use them. So, for example, Gerard Steenkamp didn't start last week, played more minutes than Bone Venter. So there's a lot to be said about the fact that just because you start doesn't mean you're going to end up playing more minutes. You got maybe a different kind of role to going. So everyone's reckoning we're going to see a Johan Kobela start, which I don't think. I mean, I think if Jan Hendricks Vessels was around, I think he would probably potentially start. And I think that's going to be, that's always one of our biggest blows, the fact that we haven't been able to use Jan Hendrik West. So I would be very interested to see the role he would have played over this National Nations. Would we have seen him start at loosehead, for example, ahead of Bone Fenter? Would we see him coming off the bench at loosehead? Would he be becoming hooker? Because we've lost that option, that sort of hybrid player in the form of Jan Hendrik Wessels. And that's been quite frustrating, because I think he would have played a really big part in this end of year tour. So not having had him has been a really big frustration, I think, for Rassie Rasmussen and his coaching staff, because I think that they would have loved to have keep giving him more caps. He probably would have played, I think, probably 4, if not 5 games, and added that to his experience. So the fact that he's missed the entire tour is a huge, huge blow, especially given the fact that he's fit. He's ready to play. But obviously a very controversial ban that we spoke about a little bit last night in our live show. So if you want to go and get involved in that, go and check out the live show last night and see what was said. Also, please do consider becoming a member. And we're trying to get 2 members a day. So we got 1 member yesterday. So ideally, I'd like to try and get 3 today, maybe, on our road to trying to get up to 300 members by the end of the year. Obviously, usually it's our weekends that we really sort of ramp up our memberships. So we try and sort of catch up over the weekend. But let's try and get ahead of that, shall we? So please do consider becoming a member. It is a very nominal amount every month, but it goes a long way towards us being able to get correspondence for overseas, to cover all the stuff like that. We've got somebody in Ireland next week, for example. So we've made sure that the biggest week, arguably, of our year, we are going to have somebody on the ground and make sure we get in the Rassie Rasmussen press conferences and the likes of that. Matthew says, morning, Stephen. Hope you're well. I think the team won't be that much different. I think we are taking this tour very seriously. Yeah, it's a fair point. And I think that it's not the Italy that we played in mid-year. That's what I was saying the other day in our live show. It's going to be a much better Italy side. You've got Gobbersy back. You've got Michel Lamora is back. You've got Capoiozzo is back. You're going to see a much stronger Italian side. And the fact that they beat, as we put Johan Koblar into our side, the fact that they beat Australia last week, who've beaten us, is a bit of a warning for us. I think that the game that we really can kind of do what we want is Wales. They're outside the top 10 for good reason. They're playing pretty woeful rugby. Jack Morgan's not injured and loose in the squad. He's pretty much the only world-class player. It's just... It's not good over there. So I think that against Wales, we will see rotation. I think we will see Zachary Portham get an opportunity. I think we'll see Ben Jason Dixon start. I think we'll see Winifred Berg start. I think we'll see lots of different players whoever had the least amount of minutes going into that game, I think gets a go. Troyden Renoir says, good morning, Steve. Is Kobler a good fetcher, Jackler? I mean, not in the sense that Malcolm Marx is. He's not dreadful over the ball. Not really one of his party tricks, I suppose, per se. But he's not bad. He's reasonable at the breakdown. But I suppose, kind of, if you start to compare it to Malcolm Marx, one of the best in the world, you're kind of always going to come up short. But he's not bad. I wouldn't say he's necessarily in a side as a Jackler, in the sense that a Malcolm Marx is, in a sense that like a Kwaka Smith is, for example. But he's a decent breakdown threat. I think Jasper Wiese is probably our biggest breakdown threat if Malcolm Marx doesn't start. He's obviously very good over the ball. Siya Kolisi in a different type of breakdown threat, not necessarily in Jackling point of view, but counteracting the likes of that. Marcus Ferreira reckons Jasper, Marx, and Peter Stoy must rest. I don't think they necessarily need rest, inverted commas, but it's more about rotation. I mean, as I said, those guys would have only have played 3 matches in the last 6 weeks. They played first week of October, then had 3 weeks off. They played back-to-back matches. And then, Peter Stoy didn't even play against Japan, so he doesn't need a rest at all. He's played 1 match so far this tour. Yas has played 2, Marx has played 2. So I think Jasper Wiese starts. I'll be very surprised if we go Siya Kolisi at 8, for example. I think he probably needs to be rotated more so than Jasper Wiese, and he's kind of the only other option at 8. And next we all of a sudden see Ben Jason Dixon as a potential 8. I'll be surprised, but that could potentially be an option. I don't think there's anybody else really that we're going to see running in that number 8 channel. This is quite a close vote, by the way, between Thomas Latoy and Zachary Portham for who starts in the number 3 jersey. So we're going to rock that out at 50 votes. So let's get 3 more votes on that, and then we'll add those guys into that side. And then again, for those of you who keep asking last night, team announcements day at around 2 o'clock. We will be live at 1:45. That is the plan. And that is when we're expecting to see the Springboks side come out. Might come out a little bit earlier, might come out a bit later. Who knows? But we'll go live then, and hopefully you guys will come join us as we pick apart what I think is going to be a very interesting Rassie Erasmus side. I think it'll kind of show you as well what the thinking is for next week. I'll be interested to sort of see, for example, let's say Kurt Lawrence, a man of the match against Japan, okay? Maybe a bit of a quieter game last week. If for example, Edwin van der Merwe starts this week, and obviously it's against Italy, but if he goes and has a man of the match performance, goes and scores tries for funds, for example, how tempted does Rassie Erasmus get to give him an opportunity against Ireland? Or our same as Ethan Hooker, for example. How much does that come in? And I'll be interested to see, how much has next week already been chosen versus how many options are, or how many players rather have the potential to get themselves into the mix for next week. That's what I'm like to see. We're going to lock in the same side there. We're going to put in Thomas Latoy, who's gotten the most votes start at tight head, moving to our number 4 lock here. Huh? Who starts at number 4? Question mark. Even it's a bit. Oh shit! I tell you, I didn't put into tight head is Asanati Klabakanye. I forgot about. Because it's a late edition. Let's leave it. Let's leave Thomas there. I'll be surprised if Asanati starts. Ibn Etzebeth, Jean Klein is an option at 4. Not Lut Diaga, but Achis Sneyman could be an option at 4. And Franklin Mostert and Ruan Akia are more 5s. But let's put in Franklin Mostert. Maybe they might look at him at 4. Be surprised. But let's say maybe, shall we? Going back to the comments while you guys get voting. Malabonga says, I don't know about keeping the team the same. We don't want another Ox situation before Ireland. Italy will challenge whatever team we select, and some of the guys need the challenge. Steven says, morning, Steve. Maybe Marco on the bench to cover too. We could see that. We might see that. Yassine says, Polly, Moody, Hooker, Edville should start versus Italy. I'd say they have stuff to prove. Yeah, I think something like Andre Pollard, for example, is probably under the most pressure he's ever been under in his career because he's so used to being a bit of a shoo-in, really, for the Boks. He's always been the go-to guy. Even when he was drafted back into the side during the World Cup, when Marty Liebach was the number 1 choice, he didn't... They kind of came off the bench and then all of a sudden was back to start as the only fly in the final. So he's kind of always been the heads for emergency break last. Now, we're just not seeing him being backed in some of the big matches. So we are seeing us going and fully backing Marty Liebach and fully backing Sasha. And that's where I think if Pollard gets an opportunity this weekend, and to be fair, he got an opportunity against Australia, got a man of the match performance. So he didn't exactly take it lying down. But the fact is that the way we're playing, for example, it just seems to suit the other two, and they're rolling with it. And I think that we might see the same thing against Ireland, unless it's raining next week, in which case you might see Pollard coming, because I think he obviously suits the wet conditions more than Molly Bokke and Sash. And if you want to play a bit of a tighter game, Matty says, do you think Andre will try and change his game or stick to his ways? I think he kind of has to a certain amount I think he has to start to try and play the way we are playing, because that's kind of the plan for 2027. So he needs to try and add those sort of strings to his bow. Dylan says, you still laughed when I said Pollard is getting old. Sash and Mine doing their job now. I don't think it's got anything to do with the fact that I didn't say he's not going to play. It's more the fact that you say the man's getting old, but he's 31 years old. He's not old. He's definitely not aging out, in inverted commas. He's not being picked because he's too old. He's going to be 33 at the next World Cup. That's 100% okay to be playing. I mean, that's what, like 7 years younger than Skalk Brits was at 2019 World Cup. It's about 6 years younger than Dion Ferry was. So I think aging out is the wrong way of saying it. Being phased out or being not picked because of not being consumed to the condition, to the playing style is one thing, but it's not because of age. I mean, Marty Liebach's only about 2 years younger than him. So, yeah, I'll disagree with the age point of view. Anyway, we've got 50 votes, and Jean Klein has got 67% of them. So I do think that is the call. I think that Jean Klein will get his first start of the year in that number 4 jersey. The next question is, who starts at number 5. You've got Ruan Nokia. You've got Franco Mostert. You've got Archie Snyman. Benolio Diago. All options in that number 5 jersey. So get your voting in there. Eric says, don't be silly. Pollard has nothing to prove. He has done it all already. Troyden says, I would love to see Williams at 9, Pollard at 10, Williams at 12, Moody at 13, Sasha at 15. Eric saying Pollard can still play 2 times World Cups. He could do from an age point of view. JD says, Pollard will start for almost every international team out there. Esse just has so much depth. It's actually insane. Just Rock Up saying, what do you reckon of Etzebeth and Nokia start this week and the Munster duo Klein and Snyman start against Ireland? Faisal says, I think Rusty is giving Marnie and Sasha more pressure cooker moments to give them that experience. Andre will always be our safety net, the iced man. And Matthew says, I think that Andre just needs to work on how he receives the ball. Marnie and Sasha get it while they're running or moving, while Andre gets it while being static. Yeah, I think, and this is the thing that, I mean, even when Tony Brown came in, he said he can't wait to work with Andre Pollard. And he said that, you know, he was a really bright attacking flower from the beginning of his career, and he maybe lost some of that as his career went on. And he'd like to have gotten himself back to you know, leading on that skill set that he had at the beginning of the career. So, you know, he's got to be able to adapt. And that's the thing. The best players can adapt to different styles of play, for example, to different situations. And he is one of the best players out there. So I think he'll have the opportunity to do it. But at the end of the day, you know, we look at 2027, dry, fast-paced pitches, and the other fly halves just suit the game plan better and are playing very, very well. So I think that at the end of the day, at the moment, he is, inverted commas, he has been dropped. It's not a case of, oh, well, we just want to see how they can do. That definitely goes into it. But, you know, last week against France, we wanted to win. That was the big thing. It was not about how he performed last week. It wasn't about, trying to build a game plan, the likes of that. We had to win. Same against New Zealand and Wellington, we had to win. And we basically said, well, we think this is our best opportunity to win. This is our best chance of winning. This is our best team to try and beat these sides. And it didn't include Andre Pollard. We then played against Argentina in what was virtually a final for the Rugby Championship, and we still didn't play him. So I think at the moment he is genuinely the third choice fly half. Maybe if we had a wet conditions final tomorrow, they might